now have less than a week to go until Election Day, and next Tuesday night could prove to be a very long one in New Hampshire. New polling shows a pair of Democratic incumbents for federal offices trailing their Republican challengers. Well, our New Hampshire political analyst, Dr. Nathan Schrader from New England College in Henniker, joins us live via Zoom tonight. Dr. Schrader, thank you for joining us. And we saw polling from St. Anselm College in Manchester yesterday showing two Republican candidates gaining a great deal of momentum. Don Bolduc, running for U.S. Senate, had a 2-point lead over incumbent Democrat Maggie Hassan, the former governor, of course. And in the 1st Congressional District, we saw Caroline Leavitt was leading incumbent Democrat Chris Pappas. What do you make of these most recent findings, and also that of Don Bolduc's favorability seeming to be on the rise right now?
Right. Well, look, Mike, thank you very much for having me. Look, I've been following these races extremely closely all through the summer and into the fall. And I think there's no doubt in my mind that the races are tightening in New Hampshire. But I think that also follows along with the national trend, right? That we're seeing Senate races and House races in other battleground states that are tightening to and moving towards the GOP. Now, there's only, I have no reason to doubt the accuracy of the St. A's poll, but there was one set of numbers that stood out to me. Is it just felt, it felt unlikely, but again, I don't doubt the numbers. It was that Bolduc and Leavitt were both leading their Democratic opponents by 15 or 16 points among 18 to 34-year-old voters. Now, typically, I would not expect voters in that youngest age bracket to be, attracted to the messages of Leavitt and Bolduc. So that jumped out at me that if that's true, I think that's a significant thing that the Democrats have to be really worried about. That if they're losing among the youngest voting bloc in those two races to that magnitude, that's significant, and that means they're both in trouble if that's accurate.
Definitely an unlikely finding, no doubt. Do you know if there is any particular success in getting their respective messages out to potential voters in the Granite State that you think Bolduc and Leavitt might be experiencing now?
Right. I live in the 1st District, so I see a good bit of the Pappas and Leavitt advertising. And I'm seeing all the Bolduc and Hassan advertising. And I'll tell you the truth, the Bolduc campaign has come on really strong with ads that attempt to rough edges around Don Bolduc, because if you watched him in the primary election, he's more Trump than he is, let's say, George W. Bush in terms of being rough around the edges, right? The ads that the Bolduc campaign is running have really softened him in that way. The problem I see with the Democratic messaging is it's all about abortion. 24/7, they're talking about abortion. And I know that they believe that that's a significant issue for mobilizing and motivating the Democratic base. But though that is simply not the issue that most Americans say is the top one. It's the economy / inflation, it's crime, it's immigration. And the Democratic candidates, not just in New Hampshire, but across the country, are just not talking about those things. So they're trying to message their way out of declining poll numbers in a rough election year by talking about things that most voters say aren't their top priorities. I really don't understand that strategy. I've been involved in politics since I was 14 years old, and I've never seen a more tone-deaf strategy, but I don't understand it. I don't know why they haven't adjusted their sails with the changing winds, but they haven't.
You mentioned also, Dr. Schrader, some burnishing of rough edges, perhaps, in Don Bolduc's case. Now, some people may remember that Caroline Leavitt used to work at one time in President Trump's White House press office, and also once worked as North Country Congresswoman Elise Stefanik's communication director. Stefanik's district, of course, is in our coverage area. Do you see the same sorts of potential rough edges, at least at perhaps the outset of the campaign, in Caroline Leavitt's case? And if you do, what kind of success do you see in those having been burnished, perhaps?
Right. I'm seeing fewer ads like that for her, but what I am seeing, again, presents she ran a conventional race appealing to the MAGA Republican base in the primary. She's running a campaign that's more targeted towards the middle right now. It's hard to tell which one do people believe that it's the Caroline Leavitt that they saw in the primary, the hard charging MAGA candidate, the ultra MAGA candidate, or is it this more moderate, toned down Caroline Leavitt? It just depends which ones the voters who are on the fence and the voters who are in the middle think is the real deal, or which one are they going to get? And so far, the Chris Pappas ads as well, they've tried to target her, but they're not hitting her, in my estimation, on issues that voters are talking about every day, the kitchen table issues. They're hitting her with abortion and Trump ties. Well, those are important issues, but I just don't think those are the things driving the vote right now this year in New Hampshire, in New Hampshire's first district, or most of the country.
I appreciate that observation, Dr. Schrader. And just in the few moments that we have left, I understand you also heard from New Hampshire's Secretary of State today about how next Tuesday night may look and feel to all of us. What kind of things did you learn?
Yeah, New England College hosted Secretary of State David Scanlon today. He had a message about the importance of students who are New Hampshire residents living in residence halls and things across New Hampshire about voting here. Now, there was also the union leader cover story above the fold Sunday, where the Secretary's office is saying we might expect delays in the New Hampshire vote counting on Tuesday because of an abnormal number of write-ins that may trigger hand counting of ballots. So if that's true, if what the Secretary's office is seeing and what the union leaders reporting is true, it could be a longer wait than usual in a couple really tight elections.
Yeah, indeed. Some of us might be accustomed to that from election night 2020, that November,
That's
Dr.
right.
Schrader. But thank you for taking the time to join us from New England College in Henniker. Have